Good morning. My name is Sam Doshin. I'm a director at Accenture in our public service practice. I work extensively with government, driving change and innovation within their organizations. I am honored to be here this morning, though I realize that many of you may be out there thinking, Accenture, possibly not the most obvious fit to introduce our ScaleUp panel of entrepreneurs. So let me try to influence your thinking. I recently came to Accenture from a startup. In 2014, I was employee number 4 of a small Ottawa-based consultancy company. Over 6 years, we grew the company to 80 consultants, and as of last December, we became part of Accenture. And I found that our success as a startup was driven by the same core values as Accenture: client value creation, respect for the individual, integrity, and stewardship, and so on. There are some differences. For example, Accenture's global network is maybe a little more impressive. But at the core, both companies wanted to create an inclusive, diverse, connected, and challenging environment where our people can be their best, doing meaningful work, creating value, and delivering results for customers, clients, and citizens. And while I'm singing its praises, I'm more than a little bit proud that Accenture's chair and CEO is a woman, as is our CFO, our lead of strategy, our chief leadership officer, and so on. As a company, we're about 42% female globally, with the goal of a 50-50 gender-balanced workforce by 2025. And I think that's impressive. And I think the ability to get there speaks to the importance of forums such as our program today, a space for women leaders to share their journeys and learnings for success. So, without further ado, I'm thrilled to introduce our award-winning ScaleUp panel of visionary changemakers. Bethany Deshpande, CEO and co-founder of SomaDetect. Bobbie, Racette, founder and CEO of Virtual Gurus and Ask Betty, recognized as one of 50 changemakers for 2021 by the Report on Business and Startup Canada's Indigenous Entrepreneur of the Year. And Heather Ward, co-founder, president, and chief commercial officer of Hyperion Global Energy. And the panel will be moderated by Sonya, Shorey, Vice President, Strategy, Marketing, and Communications at Invest Ottawa, Bayview Yards, and Area XO. I am inspired by our panelists, their accomplishments, and their success, and I look forward to hearing more. Over to you, Sonya.
Thank you so much. And of course, everyone here today is learning with us. That was me earlier, welcoming our wonderful ScaleUp panel. My tech karma. Yes, it always gets me. It's an honor to be here today. I can't even tell you how incredibly excited I am to be back home here at Bayview Yards with so many friends and colleagues and just amazing leaders. So thank you all for those who are joining us online and here at Bayview. We have an incredible panel for you. And we are going to open up before we get started with those amazing panelists with a video hosted by Jennifer Francis, chair of the Capital Angel Network, and Claudia Rojas, CEO of NACO. This video is going to set the stage for our discussion as it's going to address the current angel investment landscape, highlighting some of the changes, the hopes, with a big focus on women founders and investors. So before we go to our panelists, let's set the stage. Investment is a key channel, particularly for all of those who are looking to scale.
Hello, I'm Jennifer Francis. I'm the chair of Capital Angel Network, and I'm here today with Claudia Rojas, who is
to my friends in the AV area. Why don't we jump in and get started, and we will look forward to sharing that video with you. There are some important highlights on capital. It is a privilege to be with you, and we just had a marvelous introduction from Accenture. Bethany, Bobbie, and Heather, Thank you so much for being leaders, for being change makers, and for being with us today. You know that our panel is going to explore your entrepreneurial journey. You are all award-winning tech founders, groundbreakers. To set the stage for our discussion today, I would love to have each of you introduce a little bit of your entrepreneurial journey and some of your most defining moments as founders. Heather, you and I have known each other for a long time. Why don't we open up with you? You're right here in Ottawa with us. Welcome.
Sure. Good morning, Sonya and everybody watching. Thanks so much for having me. Thrilled to be here and in Ottawa, as you mentioned. So I'm the president co-founder of Hyperion Energy. We're a company that recycles carbon. We're building the world's first carbon recycling machine to turn dirty air into dollars. So recycling emissions into valuable minerals. My entrepreneurial journey started in my 20s, which was a little while ago. And my first business was a boutique PR firm. So I served multinational clients, worked in Toronto, did that for about a decade. And then I retired to Wakefield, Quebec, which is a little village north of Ottawa, and kind of took a step back and was sort of searching for that why that we talk about today, and finding that purpose-driven work. I was very interested in the climate and looking at business as a force for good, tech for good. I joined a social innovation incubator. Got a little bit bored up in Wakefield, so joined the Incubator Impact Hub, started working with open innovation and social entrepreneurs to sort of help them on their journey, and ultimately got sucked back into entrepreneurship with my co-founder, Jerry Flynn, who's an amazing engineer who invented our technology and patent. And so the rest was history. That was about 4 years ago, and now we've launched and on our way to scale up. So I think the pivotal moment for me was really defining that why and getting involved using entrepreneurship to impact climate.
Amazing. You have such a powerful story, and I know that you've got some investment stories to share with us a little bit later on in the panel as well. Bobbie Racette joining us from Calgary. We've got great Western Canada participation today. Your story is so inspirational. I saw you on the NACO panel, and I knew we had to have you with us today. So thank you so much, Bobbie. I would love to have you share some of your amazing story with us.
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. So I'm Bobbie, the founder and CEO of Virtual Gurus. Virtual Gurus is a talent as a service platform where we provide work to underrepresented folks. And this is mostly remote work from home. And people come to our platform and they can hire a virtual assistant through the platform. And we typically use algorithms to match them to the right assistants for them. And so Virtual Gurus has since grown into being Canada's largest platform and one of the top 4 platforms in North America. And we are just scaling massively right now, and it's just such a great feeling. My entrepreneurial journey started literally when I started this business. This is my first business. I'm a first-time CEO, and I didn't think I could do it. And so one of my most pivotal moments is realizing that I could do it, and that there was nobody better to do it than myself. So, looking forward to getting more into that story and talking with these lovely people later.
I love that. I love that. No one better to do it than me, and it is so true.
Yeah.
Bethany, welcome. You join us from Halifax. So this is truly a national panel, and it's a national village that really exists here in Canada in terms of entrepreneurship and certainly support for women founders. Welcome. Tell us a little bit about your entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah, thank you. It's wonderful to be here and to be able to have this important discussion. If I'm being honest, my entrepreneurial journey started probably when I was 12 or 13 years old, and I started making websites and doing different web development stuff for small businesses and folks in my immediate city. And then later, did a series, did entrepreneurial things through school and ended up founding SomaDetect. And it took me multiple years into SomaDetect before I even identified myself as entrepreneurial, or before I would kind of say those words. Yeah. So it's wonderful to hear the strength with which Bobbie represents that for herself, and same with Heather. Yeah. Definitely was sort of finding the work I wanted to do in the world, and what that felt like. And entrepreneurship's been a really incredible journey and way to do that for me.
And you're in ag tech. So we have an Ottawa Smart Farm here at AreaX.O. So we're really thrilled. I love seeing the diversity of the visionary ventures that we've brought together today. We have been talking a lot about inspiration and actionable insight as we lead up to today. And we know that women face many different types of challenges, particularly founders from the early to the later stages. Could you describe some of the greatest challenges that you faced and how you overcame those hurdles so that hopefully some of our participants today can take away those lessons and apply them in their own business? Who would like to kick off?
I'm happy to kick off if nobody else wants to jump in there, starting a trend here. So I think some of the biggest challenges, and I know that this is part of the opening for today's event, is just the challenge of funding startups as a woman and getting access to capital. And that it took us 4 years on that journey until we closed our first angel round earlier this year. So in the 4 years leading up to that, we really had to bootstrap and dig in and basically self-fund the company to build traction. And of course, when you're talking about taking CO2 and invisible gas out of the air and turning into a product, people don't believe you in the beginning until you've actually done it and be able to prove that out. So I think the key was to continually validate and de-risk and continue to build traction and momentum where you can in those all important years when you're trying to get funding. So joining Invest Ottawa and the accelerators, being able to have client traction, early validation and grant, due diligence for non-dilutive funding. Those sorts of things really help to shape the story so that when we went to approach investors, we were ready for that. And it, also just being resilient to getting a lot of no's. I think we pitched Capital Angels probably at least three times before we made it. And it's getting everything together. You have a lot of learnings that you go back to the drawing board, see what was missing, and keep coming back and just stay strong and be persistent.
I want you to know Jennifer Francis is beaming here in the Foundry. This is the beauty of being here on the stage. I get to see all the reactions. She's got a grin from ear to ear.
And I will say Jennifer is one of our investors. So thank you for that. We've got some fantastic female investors on our roster. So very grateful for that.
Amazing. Thank you. Bobbie, you've overcome all kinds of hurdles and challenges when we've talked. Your story is just so inspirational. I'd love for you to share some of your lessons.
Definitely. I can definitely resonate with Heather. So we bootstrapped Virtual Gurus up until close to 2 million annual recurring revenue because nobody thought we were a scalable product at the time. So I went through, it was close 170 investors saying no. And so I'd have to say one of the tough lessons for me were taking those no's and turning the constructive feedback into positive outcomes for myself while not letting it beat me down, because if I'm down, then my company's down. And so I really had to push forward and push through that. And so after 2.5 years of trying to raise our seed round, we closed 1.25 million last year, and we're just about to close a Series A round here right now. But it's been a little bit easier because I was able to express and prove that we are scalable. And so that's been really good. One of my other, on more of a personal note, because I know a lot of founders probably do go through this, is struggles that I've had is I'm an introvert, and I've really struggled with having to put myself out there from the beginning. And I had realized that I was going to need to put myself out there, and I was going to need to believe in myself. And so I really went over a lot of hurdles with that, of trying to not be afraid to talk publicly, not be afraid to get on stages and to do panels like this. It was a really tough pill for me to swallow a couple years ago, and I struggled with it, but I realized it was something I had to get over and I had to overcome and persevere over in order for me to be able to move the company forward.
Amazing. And Canadian Indigenous Entrepreneur of the Year, not once, but twice. So it's just amazing. And kudos, congratulations on that investment. Bethany.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's so many challenges that, you go through. For me, one of the things I remember there being a moment early on in the company where I realized that as it got bigger and as things grew, it actually constantly feels like failure, I think often to the founder, because these are things for most of the jobs, these are like things you do in the beginning that you inherently have to pass off to someone else because they're specialized in it, or they, it needs someone owning that full time. And same thing with investment, like that the activity of investment is going out, and it's not that every single person's going to say yes to you by any means. Nobody in the world gets that sort of response, but it's so you're going to get no's, and having the grit to get through those, because it's hard. It's and there are days where it feels like there's way more no's than any sort of yes. But I think, pulling that through, and ag tech, I will say it's grown a lot in the last 5 years, which is wonderful. Like since I first began the company, but it's always been this. I think there are these sectors that are just folks, we don't think about them. We don't think about where our food comes from, or the massive work and money and all these things, care that goes into getting food from the farm to on our table, and the potential for innovation in that. And so a lot of, when you speak with investors about dairy cows and farming activities and ag tech, it's certainly getting better now, but there's just so much learning, and there's so much that folks have to realize, and all of that just adds to the fundraising journey and the entrepreneurial journey for sure.
There's so many important scale-up lessons learned, and it's particularly exciting for me because we have a scale-up platform that we deliver with our friends at Mars and Communitech, and it really looks at those axes of investment, customer acquisition, revenue generation, and talent acquisition. And I know that you all have some very unique experiences in those areas. You heard our first panel talking a lot about the investment challenges, and you just highlighted some of those that you've been through. You have all raised successfully, each and every one of you. What is the one thing that you think was most important for you to secure that investment? What's a little bit of that secret of your success that maybe you don't have the opportunity to talk much about?
I can go ahead here. I think for us, really, it was timing. So we were a little bit of, ahead of the game. When we got into carbon tech 4 years ago, people weren't talking about this as much as they are now. And, now we were part of the Carbon X Prize. And now Elon Musk is putting $50 million into carbon removal and potentially doing for carbon removal what he did for electric vehicles in terms of bringing it to the mass attention. I think the traction just in climate tech in general and the massive interest for investment. We saw that with also being part of Techstars Energy out of Oslo in the spring for our demo day, just the massive amount of social signaling. And I think just, you have FOMO, all these different factors come into play. So I think it's just being at the right place at the right time. And, that saying luck is preparation meets opportunity. So we prepared for it. And finally, our time came when people were talking about this and kind of seeing the opportunity. So we kind of waited that out and also just helped to add to that, I think, by joining networks and groups and trying to get involved in early thought leadership in the sector. And so we were just able to be well positioned at that time and excited to see how it now has the opportunity to scale.
Amazing. Bobbie.
I love that. I could hit this from so many different angles just because I've gone through so much with it. And I always think, actually the other day I was asked to write a book about it because I think that it's great for other people to read about the ups and downs of raising and everything. But one thing that I had learned through my journey was not to change who I am. as a Indigenous woman, but an Indigenous LGBT woman in tech is really difficult, especially when you're raising, and a lot of the people you're raising, or a lot of the people that you're pitching are, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with it, but cis white males. And it was really difficult for me. It was I wouldn't say a trigger point for me, but it was really difficult for me to stand up in front of people pitching what I'm doing and feeling like I'm being judged, and feeling, that because of the way I look. I really struggled with that, but I had realized it had nothing to do with the people I was pitching. It had nothing to do with everybody. It had all to do with me, and it had everything to do with me believing in myself. So I think my number one, I guess lesson learned is that I would love to share is believe in yourself and be you, and certainly be bold and be brave when you're doing it, because it's like Bethany said, everybody's going to get no's. Not everything is going to be a yes, but those no's will be easier to handle when you believe in yourself a lot more, because obviously we all believe in our product, but we have to go back into believing in ourselves, because I've talked to so many startup founders who struggle with believing in themselves when they are out there pitching. So I love to hit it more on that kind of a personal level of a lesson learned. So for sure.
So inspirational. We're going to come back to imposter syndrome. There's a big question that I want to unpack there. Bethany, your secret to success with the incredible investment that you've raised.
Yeah, I love that. And I do want to, I know we'll talk about imposter syndrome. I think for me, there's so much to be, identifying what my imposter syndrome was, or where that showed up, was such an important part of my own growth. And I think just something all of us, it's so human, something we all face. And so I think there's absolutely this personal component of fundraising. And then, but I'll just on the work of it is having a story, telling the most compelling story possible. And I think that's absolutely, for me, fundraising, my success in fundraising came more and more when I led from a place of storytelling. But then, as Heather spoke about preparation, it's having every single fact and figure just, not even in your back pocket, literally in your right hand for when those things came. So you could always match the emotional journey of storytelling, the compelling storytelling, with the cold hard facts of your market and your product and the return on investment and all these different things. And I think when we pair those things well, it's incredibly powerful and something people just genuinely want to be a part of, whether as investors or employees or service providers or whatever else comes. And so for me, it was the balance of those two things.
I could not agree more. Stories that capture the heart and mind, that make you memorable, that make you stand out. Amazing insight. Let's dig into this imposter syndrome, because I am consistently in awe of the number of amazing women leaders that I know, and I know so many that divulge to me that they often lack confidence, that they feel like they don't belong in that room at that table, and it's just unbelievable to me. How do we break that? How do we help build up that confidence? What helped you gain that confidence, and what advice would you have for other women who need to get there?
Can jump in first again. So I think, like Bobbie said, believing in yourself and the where that comes. And I actually had people telling me it wasn't just my own self-doubt. I actually had people saying, you don't belong here. You're not an engineer. How dare you think that you could run a clean tech company, sort of thing. And so I came from a family of engineers, and my father was an environmental engineering professor named Jerry, like my co-founder. And so I had seen that sort of world, but it was very much, I was working backstage at fashion weeks and doing very different things, but still with technology and, electric vehicles and so on, looking at some of that climate movement. But I didn't necessarily, pair that together. And so the imposter syndrome for me, I think what I really started to realize was, well, why not me? I looked around and I thought, well, obviously someone's doing something about the climate crisis. Somebody must be creating some technology to save the planet. I'm sure, somebody much smarter than me somewhere is doing this and taking care of it, and looked around and it's like an echo chamber. And you start to realize, wow, okay, I guess I'm going to have to jump in and do this, because the opportunity that was ahead of us and the technology that my co-founder had invented and worked on for over a decade was so, important, I felt, to the world, that I sort of had to bring whatever skills I had. And really, for this type of technology, it's not a technical challenge, I learned. It's a business, economic, and market challenge. And those are things I know. So bringing technology to commercialization is something I've done, maybe not in the environment, it's somewhat in the environmental space, but I think that you can really start to look at, as I did, why not me, and really step into that role, as Bobbie said before, kind of just stepping in and realizing that maybe you are the best person to help move that forward. And that passion and energy, I think, is also what's needed.
Amazing. Bobbie.
So one of the things that happened to me that made it all change for me was on my demo day in the first accelerator I was in. It was 5 minutes before I was to go on stage and do my pitch, and there was a pretty big crowd, and I choked, and I just packed up my bag and my laptop, and I walked out of the building and I went home. I was like, I'm not doing this. And then meanwhile, they're on stage calling Bobbie, and I was gone, and I couldn't do it. And it was a part of me. Like I essentially beat myself up over it, because I was like, what? I'm not going to grow this business if I do that. And I felt like I needed some sort of retribution to be able to jump forward and say that I can do this. So I traveled out to Montreal, and I went to Startup Fest and ended up becoming the runner-up for the pitch competition, because I felt like I needed to redeem myself and prove that I can do it, because, it wasn't that people were looking at me that I couldn't do it. It was that I was looking at myself saying, oh, you're not going to be able to do this. And that's where I started realizing my confidence needed to grow. As Virtual Gurus grows and grows more, not only are we put into the limelight a lot more because of our growth and because of my story, I've learned something every day. And recently, the most important thing that I've learned, in order for me to be a good leader, is that it's okay to be vulnerable while leading with distinction. And it's totally okay with that. And totally okay with that. And it's okay to be myself. And it's okay if I'm going to make mess ups here and there or stutter in this. So I had to really learn that. The other part of the imposter syndrome was when I didn't believe that I could do it, I hired a CEO off of Kijiji to run my business for me, because I didn't think I could. And 6 months later, I was like, wait a minute, what am I doing? And I had to make that person exit the company so that I could take it over, because that's when I realized that there was really nobody better than to do this than myself. So I think it's important for all of us to understand that it's okay to be vulnerable, and it's okay, to not be okay sometimes. And, there's a lot of support groups out there that we can reach out to, other founders that we can talk to. I have a group with other founders out here that we call the No Filter Club. And, and it's just amazing to be able to have those people to bounce your issues off of. So. Yeah.
Founders helping founders. It's a big underpinning of our venture development program, and how timely our VP of VenDev just walked in. Welcome, Nick. Bethany.
Yeah. For me, I think it's such an interesting topic for me, because when for most of my life, when I first started Soma in particular, I didn't actually realize the sort of depth of imposter syndrome that I felt. I remember even hearing talks or participating in things and being like, why is everyone talking about imposter syndrome so much? I kind of had this attitude of is this necessary? Do we need to do this? And the further I went, though, the more I realized, oh my gosh, I actually, I went from someone who was like, I have no imposter syndrome to, oh, I have imposter syndrome about everything, everywhere. And every single time something good happened in the company, I actually, instead of feeling good about it or proud about it, I felt awful. I had anxiety. I had all kinds of things that would come up for me. And from the sense of, oh my, like it's only a matter of time until they realize that I don't know what I'm doing, or I don't deserve any of this, or, you know, all these forms that it takes. And so I think, you know, for me, it was Bobbie's absolutely right. It's like finding the right people to help unpack that, seeing it in other people now too. I realized not only was I experiencing that, but I think every single, not just every single founder, but I think everyone has some sense of that. Like, do I belong here, or am I the right person to do this throughout the world? Like we all sort of face this in different ways. And that it comes from a place of, you know yourself way better than anybody else. You know what you think you're way more critical of yourself. You know the mistakes you've made, you know the regrets you have, and all of that. No one can look at it the way you can. Even the people that show up and say, like, I'm not so sure about you, kind of thing, or what, like, do you belong here? They don't actually know. They're literally asking the question, and you're the one that can answer that, and actually you're the one that can piece together why you do belong. And for me, it was like seeing that and acknowledging that in myself, celebrating those things in myself that really helped make the difference. And now something I, you know, strive to do with every single person I work with. And I think for so many other entrepreneurs, like it's an incredible gift to be able to see that you are the right person to do this. And so for anyone who is thinking about starting something and hasn't started it yet, like, just go. Don't worry. Most of us don't start from a place of, oh yeah, I know what I'm doing and I'm the person to do this. You will find it along the way. And that is a much greater gift that you will give yourself than any aspect of your business. And so, yeah.
Amazing inspiration and insight from 3 founders who have successfully raised, are all award-winning. So if they can feel this way, it's very easy to understand how many aspiring and current founders and women right around the world can feel these things. And so thank you for that incredible insight. You have all scaled your companies. You know, when you think about a scale up, it's that 20% year-over-year growth. You're all scaling domestically and internationally. What guidance would you have, or what important steps did you take as you were really scaling your company from that talent perspective, customer, and building up your revenue? What are some of those key gems we could share? Bethany, why don't we go back to you?
Yeah, for sure. We can switch up the order. I think so. What we're doing now in Soma is, and I think, you know, COVID has forced this for so many of us, but it's like looking at the world each and every day or each and every week and saying, what is the situation we're in? And what is the very best thing we can do from this perspective? And having the entire team also take on that flexibility. Like you do strategic planning and you have goals and all these different things. And it's like, how do we be as nimble as possible, as like sort of forgiving to ourselves, forgiving to everybody wants to do a great job, but you don't know what cards you're dealt or what cards your folks are dealt. And so that's my number one advice, is this like bring fresh eyes every day and switch as quickly as you can, given this, you know, the situation that you have. And that's, you know, the only way you will move forward, because otherwise the alternative to that is like sort of you get stuck in you want a certain outcome, or you want it to look a certain way, and that just might not be how it looks. That just might not be where you're going, and so let yourself discover that along the way.
Amazing. Bobbie.
Amazing. I'm just in awe. Like I could be in a panel with ScaleUp ladies all day long, because I just love hearing such similar stories. This is amazing. I think for me, you know, we're scaling, but we're scaling a lot of people. So one thing with Virtual Gurus is we pride ourselves on diversity inclusion, and so we have set out a mandate where 95% of our contractors will identify as female. 65% will be part of the BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, people of color community. and 45% part of the LGBTQ community. Well, in there, we do have a lot of people with disabilities and single stay-at-home moms who are just trying to make ends meet, and maybe the typical 9-to-5 mold doesn't fit them. And so with me trying to scale the business while raising, the hardest part and one of probably the most eye-opening experiences for me is creating that safe culture for not only my employees, because I have 32 employees, and we're hiring a lot right now. We'll be at 50 employees by the end of this year. And then I have over like around 400 contractors-ish working in the system right now. And we're hiring a lot more with the goal of hitting over 1,000 by next year. So we have a mandate that we've set out where we call them our North Star. And everybody that works for us is our North Star, because virtual gurus wouldn't be virtual gurus without them. So while I'm trying to scale and raise money, I'm also trying to make sure we're focused on the culture. And I think focusing on your culture and creating a safe workspace is extremely important. And it's something that I've had to learn. And I'm reading tons of books on it, and I'm still learning, because it's easier said than done. Like, you have to really reach deep within to make sure that you're creating that culture and that workspace that people want to come and work in. And so I think, it's kind of a wide answer, but I think that it's about creating creative and safe work cultures as well.
I want to jump in and just probe on that, because talent is more mobile and global than ever. And we talk about it extensively in our ecosystem. What really are some of the keys to success that you're employing, Bobbie, to build that culture? Because we know it's going to be challenging in the nature of remote work, where the classic team and office have been dismantled. It's a whole new environment.
It is. So we have two different sides, right? Like, we have our full operations. We're a two-sided marketplace. So we have our operations downtown here in Calgary, and then we have our contractors who are spread across Canada and now the US. We're going into the US big time. And so creating the culture with my staff is a little bit different than creating a safe space for the contractors, because, they're two totally different things. But my staff, we've done things like, just last week, we took pretty much the whole team out to TELUS VIP booth football game. We do things where on Fridays we shut down. We just implemented, and we're putting the announcement out today, no meeting Fridays. And that's catch up days, hangout, and we have like TikTok Fridays where we make TikTok videos, and we just have fun. But I also get involved with them, and I support them through everything, and I'm very hands-on with it still. I know as we scale bigger and bigger, especially to hundreds of staff, which we're going that way now, I know I won't be able to. So it's important for me to try to grasp that culture now, so that the culture gets handed down to the management that are coming in. And so yeah, I think it's just being with your people and being with them.
Amazing legacy building. That's what that is.
Yeah.
Heather, your scale up journey. There's so many great facets to your story.
Yes, so many. And I'll be brief, because I know you probably got another question as well, Sonya, but can't agree more with what Bethany and Bobbie have shared. Relate to that very much so. And as Bobbie just said, culture is key, and we've gone through a lot of trial and error in culture, and hiring and having people that are fit. I think the key I've discovered over time is really, the clearer you are on your mission and vision, the more that you're going to attract your people and keep them. And whether that's talent, customers, advisors, investors, I think when you surround, the people that you surround yourself are the company, especially in the early stage and this key pivotal scaling stage. So to get that right in the beginning is, I think, the number one thing as a founder that will kind of make or break you, really. And so for us, with COVID challenges, and obviously travel is different, and manufacturing, we have to go into plants and manufacture. We're not an app or software. And so that's been a challenge, and, delays with supply chains and parts and all of those kinds of things that keep me up at night. But I think the key for us has been finding alignment with partners. So for instance, one strategy that's worked for an export strategy is that we've found the global companies who are the leaders in the space that we want to work with, and trying to build relationships with them on the local level. So one of our big pilot customers, our first pilot rollout, is a global company. We've worked with their headquarters out of Europe, but we will be building and manufacturing locally in Ontario at their plant here. So finding a way to work locally while having that global impact. And I think aligning yourself with those partners, because they will tell the story of your brand as well, those early champions, and having that, the ESG alignment as the other co-founders I've spoken about is so important as well. So finding that values alignment, it's I think just very pivotal when you go to market to have that that story told through not just your own company, but the story that you're going to tell about your customers as well.
There's so many women founders I know, just like you, that have that connection to the UN sustainability goals, that social impact, building profitable businesses while having an incredible impact on society. It's just been a privilege to speak with you all. And I know we're in our final 3 or 4 minutes. So I'd love to hear from each of you. Slowly, step by step, we're coming out of COVID. We so hope. It's demanded incredible resilience this last 20 months. You've all demonstrated that resilience. What would your one key takeaway be to all the founders and entrepreneurs, current and aspiring, that join us today to build their resilience to keep going?
I can jump in, and I would just say something that I tell myself daily, and especially through tough times, is just keep your eye on the prize. There's going to be so many distractions, so many hurdles and bad days and things you're going to need to overcome. And, I think the key is there will be failures, but it doesn't necessarily, as long as you don't quit, just keep going, and the sun's going to come out tomorrow, as cheesy as that may sound. I think if you keep an eye on your vision and purpose and let that be what drives you, you can really tune out a lot of the noise that you're going to come up against and a lot of the challenges. So my number one piece of advice, keep going.
Keep your eye on the prize. I love that. Bobbie, over to you.
I like that too. What might suck today won't suck tomorrow, right? Startup world changes every single day. I think it is, one of my number one quotas is if you ever have a hard time and, you're not sure what to do and you're kind of going through a rough time, is turn it around to inspirational things. So inspire people. I have a quote of inspire one, inspire a nation, because at the end of the day, that's kind of my love language, is inspiring people, right? So it's, spend that time just trying to inspire people, and you'll notice that when you're feeling down, you'll notice that you'll start feeling a little bit more and just, be bold and just do it, and you'll power through.
Be bold. Inspiration. This panel has delivered oodles of inspiration. I'm so grateful. Bethany.
I think I'll leave with a quick one, which is that one of the things I learned through COVID in particular is resilience doesn't only come from yourself, but comes from all the people you surround yourself with, from co-founders and colleagues and investors, friends, family, and in any entrepreneurial journey, you're going to run into bumps, and there are going to be days that feel not great, but have the folks around you that get you through that, and you will, it moves along, it flows as it goes.
Amazing. I would like to thank you on behalf of our entire team at Invest Ottawa. It has been a privilege to work with you over the last several weeks leading up to today, Heather, Bethany, and Bobbie. And today at AccelerateOTT, we're all about impact. And Bobbie and her team at Virtual Gurus are making a very special offer to all of our participants and members of our community. They're offering 75% off for the first 2 months of virtual assistant service for anyone who signs up by November 30th. Our team is sending this through Hopin. We're putting it out on social media, communicating it in our newsletter. If you want to take advantage of this and you can't find us, reach out to me personally. We will make sure you get connected. It's an opportunity to not only take advantage of that great opportunity she's creating for you, but to support the women that are part of her amazing company. And that to me is incredibly impactful and special. Thank you all so much for your time today. And thank you all for being with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Deshav.
Yeah. Awesome. We're going to do the video. Panel. Literally, I have my phone here because I was taking notes the entire time, and I just want to articulate a couple of the gems that were dropped. Believing that there's nobody who can do it better than you can really resonated with me. Take the time to really shape your brand story and your personal story. Being able to learn from the no's, see those as an opportunity to pivot and rebuild. Moving through the discomfort to get what's on the other side of that. And it sucks today, but it will not suck tomorrow is something I really needed to hear today. So thank you for that, for the wonderful panel. For those who are joining virtually, I invite you to go back to stage 1. For the people who are here, we've been sitting for a little bit of time. So maybe if you can, maybe just stand up. If you can't just move, stretch, do a little something. Let's mimic we're walking to the next conference room. Here we are back on stage 1.